bag. What a sign of status to be given to a bag. But what makes an it bag? Is it the design? Is it the number of celebrity fans? How trendy it is, or how classic it is? Maybe it is all of the above. Or maybe it's just a little je ne sais quoi, something you can't quite put your finger on. However, I will say that of the it bags that have come before, some have not quite stood the test of time that well. Some really have. Some have cemented themselves almost as classics even, or maybe even as classics. But some didn't really transcend the trends. So we are going to go through 9 it bags of yesteryear. These are between the years of 1997 and 2010. We're gonna go through the big hitters, okay? It might even ring some bells and you might be like, not that one. What an it bag she was. What a fabulous piece of fashion history, right? And we're gonna determine whether or not they've stood the test of time, or if maybe, I don't know, they're due a bit of a comeback. Some bags have well and truly cemented themselves into what is now like a classic in luxury fashion. They were once it bags, but I'm talking your Birkins, your Kellys, your Gucci Jackie, your Louis Vuitton Speedy. These are bags that they're just a part of the fashion vocab. Like, you are the foundation upon which modern luxury fashion was built. So it's not even worth really talking about those because we know they're still relevant. They're always going to be relevant. They are the girls, right? But let's talk about some others. Guys, if you are new here, my name is Cassie and I'm a self-diagnosed luxury addict. I put out videos on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays. So if you like luxury fashion, and you're probably going to love it here, so head down there, subscribe, turn on the bell, become a member of our luxury addicted family. When are we going to rehab? Never. We're going to do this in chronological order. Let's start off with the Fendi baguette. And what is shocking about this iconic it bag? There was a time, a span of time, in which they had it, and then they were just like, no, we're just gonna leave it for a bit. I'm sorry, what was Fendi bringing out in those 10 plus years? Crickets, okay? The Fendi baguette, this was born in 1997, and the original version of this bag only had the one strap. So it had one strap here with 3 little buckle holes to adjust. Are 3 holes enough level of adjustment, really, that's going to make an impact on our lives? No, not really. But thank you for trying. So it had the one strap, and it is this baguette-shaped bag named after fabulous French people who, you know, totter around with a baguette under their armpit. It's just like a fab way of like an under the armpit bag. But anyway, it has this flap with the magnetic closure. The original had this, as does the newer versions as well. This bag was popularised by Carrie Bradshaw of Sex and the City. She famously said in, I don't remember what season and episode it was, but there was a theft and he was like, give me a bag. And she was like, it's not a bag, it's a baguette. Exactly. She wore a number of different versions of this bag on the show and was honestly a big part in getting the relevancy of this bag, making this bag popular. This was released in a plethora of variations. Every variation you could think of existed in a baguette. They were beautiful little pieces of artwork. Fell off the face of the earth for a little bit. I'm going to let them have that mistake because they brought it back in 2019. And the version that they brought back in 2019, they still have that 1997 version available in some styles. But if you are looking for a standard baguette now, it's going to look something like this. This is the medium/regular size. Comes in a few sizes now and all of that. It has 2 handles. So you have the top handle, which, you know, is detachable. That's the word I'm looking for. And you also have a longer crossbody/longer shoulder strap. Or you can have neither of those and she's a fabulous little clutch. Now I'm biased because if you're a seasoned subscriber, you know how I feel about the Fendi baguette. I love this bag. I love the versatility of this bag. It is the bag that I have the most of in my collection in terms of one style replicated, which you know I really don't do all that often. If ever. I think it's really only this and the baby versions that I have more than one of. But I think that it is an excellent bag and I will always love this bag, and I think that if you are somebody who is obsessed with luxury handbags or wants to build a collection, this is a prerequisite. This is the foundation. To this day, the vintage versions of this bag are highly coveted because of the variety of different versions and colorways and all of that. And yes, now this is released as part of the permanent collection. This is a bag that every collection that launches, there is a version of the baguette in tow, at least one, if not numerous, right? Vintage versions do still have a lot of character, and they're interesting and different and almost like differentiated enough from the new versions that you are getting something very different with the vintage ones. I think that this is a bag that is still relevant, will be relevant, and I'm sorry, she's always been that girl. Another bag that we have Sex and the City to thank for. Sex and the City single-handedly was determining the it bags of the late 90s, early 2000s, okay? Patricia Field, we've got a lot to thank you for. But anyway, stylist of the show if you didn't know. The Dior saddle bag. This bag was introduced in 1999 when John Galliano was creative director of Dior, and it is, as the name suggests, modelled after a saddle. Yes, those equestrians among us, or just anybody who has some level of general knowledge about a saddle, would maybe be able to see that. Much like the Fendi baguette, this was a bag that also came in a plethora, a variety of different designs and all of that. And again, tiny pieces of artwork, truly, if you look at some of the vintage versions. But what I also really liked about the saddle and these collections were that the saddles were continuations of the collections. For example, the koi look that was, I don't know, came down the runway at some point. There was a dress, there were shoes, there was a saddle bag. It has these like glorious pink tassels down the side. An excellent saddle. You had the newspaper dress that also has the newspaper saddle. You had the Rasta collection, full range of ready to wear, and there was a matching saddle. So I liked how there was this sort of very obvious continuation through the accessories of each of these sub-collections almost. Once again, fell to the same fate as the Fendi baguette. Again, fell off the face of the earth, and then Maria Grazia Chiuri reintroduced this bag in 2018. They came in the blue oblique, the red oblique, and also plain leather. Now, this bag is pretty much identical to the original saddle in terms of size. They now do smaller sizes, but really the main difference is that this is magnetic, and the vintage versions, it's attached by Velcro. But really, everything else, the CD down the side, the D hanging, all of that, is extremely the same. You really couldn't miss this relaunch, okay? It was one of the first, like, mass gifting of influencers, and if you were on Instagram at the time, you would refresh and you would just see, like, Dior saddle after Dior saddle down your sodding feed. And clearly, for some of us, it worked. This is a bag that, since its reintroduction in 2018, has graduated into permanent status. It's a part of the new collections. When there's a new fall winter, there's a new saddle, so on and so forth, right? I will say the other thing they introduced with this bag in 2019 were longer straps that go with it. I am firmly against that strap. I don't think it makes sense with this bag. I think the charm of this bag is the fact that it's a shoulder bag and a shoulder bag only. The crossbody strap, you have it crossbody, and then this is just jabbing you in the tit as you walk. Like, it's never made sense to me. But I guess if you want the versatility. I mean, personally, I am anti the crossbody strap that comes with this bag. Initially, it was sold separately. You can still buy it separately and have the Dior saddle as is, top handle only. Or they now do a version that comes with the crossbody strap. So there are now options. Although the popularity, I think, around this bag has trickled off a little bit since its relaunch in 2018, I do think that this is a bag that still has a lot of character purely in its shape of it. Right, it's fun, it's interesting, I don't know, you can't fit your life in there, but it's got more, you know, more space in there than you might think. And I think that also because of its, how iconic it is and what it means to luxury fashion, again, there's a level that this is something that is always going to be respected and revered and loved. Once again, she's relevant. And I think that she's going to stay relevant. The Balenciaga motorcycle bag. This bag has had a couple of names throughout its life. And what's quite interesting with the it bags is that a lot of it bags seem to have like a patron saint. And the patron saint of the Balenciaga motorcycle bag is Mary-Kate Olsen. We're going to come back to this, but this bag was introduced in 2001 by Nicolas Ghesquière, who was creative director at the time. I believe, if the story is correct, that people were a bit like, the reaction to the bag wasn't great, or they didn't anticipate it to be great. So they only made 25 pieces. And then Nicolas gifted these to some of his high-profile friends, including Kate Moss. And because of this really increased interest, really got people talking about it and wanting the bag, and contributed to its subsequent popularity. Now, Mary-Kate Olsen had a mint version of this bag that really saw every part of her life. That bag was, I don't even want to think of the things that bag saw, but I'm happy for it, truly. If that, you know how they're like, if these walls could talk, if that bag could tell us stories. Because if I'm right as well, this was when she was at university in NYU. Like, come on, the parties, the social scene, all of that. That bag has seen it all. She used that bag in a way that a bag should be used, and honestly, good for her, especially with, you know, like a celebrity. You have access to anything. Why this bag? I love how much she loved her Balenciaga motorcycle bag, with wine stains and gum and wrappers and whatever else. This bag and Mary-Kate had quite the lovely little time together. And I actually think that whole thing really actually embodies the vibe of the bag. It's meant to be taken into dark corners of a nightclub. It's meant to be just slung on the shoulder as you run your errand to the dry cleaner, you know? So I think that actually, even though it was not a marketing thing, or if it was, it is possibly the most elaborate and brilliant one in luxury history. It wasn't. But I think that it just really kind of sums up what this bag is for. Back to the timeline. In 2001, Demna released a version of this bag called the Neo Classic, which was a more toned down, slightly more structured looking version of the Balenciaga motorcycle bag. And then in 2004, he did a whole campaign called La City. The bag is now called the Balenciaga La City bag. Kate Moss fronted the campaign again, giving her a little bit of a full circle moment from the original motorcycle bag in 2001. But basically, again, that version of the bag is very, 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 very similar to the original one. Clearly the Neo Classic maybe didn't hit as well as it did, or the nostalgia of where we are now in 2024, 2025 meant that there would be much more of a yearning for the original. So I also feel as though I have to mention a small blip on the radar that was the luggage bag, that was inspired by the motorcycle bag, and it was a choice to make. Now, whilst I will say I do not think the luggage is all that transcendent in terms of trends, there is something about the motorcycle and all of these bags, if it's your vibe, then it's never going to go out of style. But there is something about that motorcycle bag that is very tied to your personality or how you dress and all of that, that gives it a lot of longevity. It's an easy-ish bag, but it has a level of personality about it. I'm going to use the term personality a lot during this video, apparently. The Neo Classic, I don't think so. I think it has to be the original. It has to be the one with the story. Another bag that was born in 2001, this is the YSL Mombasa bag. This was released as part of Tom Ford's stint at Yves Saint Laurent, and it is a shoulder hobo bag in the most sort of classic of hobo styles, and it had this really interesting sculptural handle. I actually have a quote from the New York Times shortly after its release saying, "Bergdorf Goodman, which had cautiously ordered only 60 of the $700 bags because of concern about the economy, asked for another 500. So clearly this was a bag that from its debut was really popular. So this was a bag that was sort of made out of triangles of leather. If you can see those sort of stitching, you can see where all the triangles come together, sort of reminiscent of a little bit of like a Loewe puzzle bag-ish. And the handle, the original handle, was a deer horn that was naturally shed. That was quite interesting. As things evolved and they released more and more, these handles took different materials, and they were metal, and they were ones that were sort of like little sculptures and whatever. A couple of years ago, I'm not going to lie to you, if I did this video back then, I would have been like, sort of a little bit out of style, like maybe it feels a little bit aged. Now, I will disagree with that entirely. I think that this bag is 100% along the lines of the bags that have been coming out recently, and therefore would thrive. I think that she is full force, 2 feet in, on trend. The design is relatively simple. It also gives it some longevity. If you have a look at these, and you'll see some of these where the design isn't that simple, that maybe like, I'm like, okay, maybe we're aging ourselves a little bit. I think Saint Laurent is maybe missing a trick by not releasing an updated version of this bag. I don't know, just throwing that out there. My email address is in my bio if you want any consultancy. Saint Laurent, no, I'm joking. They would never, they don't know I exist. Anyway, let's move on to bag number 5. This is the Takashi Murakami Louis Vuitton Pochette. I know I've spoken so much about this collaboration because they recently had their 20th anniversary collaboration for 2025, and I feel like in every video I am just saying that sodding collaboration. So I'm gonna try and breeze through it. You can't do a video about it bags and not mention the impact that this collaboration had on luxury fashion, right? When you think of an it bag, there is an 80% chance that you are thinking of a Takashi Murakami Louis Vuitton collaboration piece. And whilst this collaboration, specifically the multicolor, had a wide variety of bag styles, it's got to be the pochette, I kind of think, that lives above them all as the it bag one. They're really any of this collaboration. The pochette specifically was worn by Lindsay Lohan in the Mean Girls movie, Raven Simone, the it girls of the time, and the collection in general was worn by everybody from like Eve and Lil Kim and Tara Reid to sodding Jessica Simpson and Naomi Campbell, right? This was the sodding collection. I think that's why it's been so nostalgic and coveted, the new version as well, and why it's done so well. This collaboration was so wildly different from anything that Louis Vuitton had done at the time. This was a collaboration under Marc Jacobs when he was creative director for Louis Vuitton. What a time that was. He did some amazing collaborations during his time, but this one was the one that almost sort of set everything off. It was a really, really fun take on luxury fashion that can sometimes feel stuffy or, you know, just the brown monogram canvas. So I think people really reacted to it in a positive way because of that. I mean, clearly the fact that they've done an anniversary collection shows the relevancy of this bag, but even before that, right, if you're a fashion girl, if you see this bag out and somebody's wearing it, the way that it just garners like a little bit of like a head nod or a smile or like a little like, oh, good for you for having that piece. Is this possibly, no, it can't be the queen of the it bags, but it's up there. Then we have the Chloe Paddingtons. This was a 2025 piece. It was introduced under Phoebe Philo at the brand, and it was the first it bag from Chloe. This was a sort of east-westy, duffel baggy style, long sort of sausage doggy shape with these 2 long handles, contrast stitching. The handle attachments were sort of oversized, zip across the top, really supple, soft leather, so it had a lot of slouch to it. And crucially, had the Chloe lock, a huge one swinging right in the centre of that bag. It had no crossbody strap. You were either wearing this in the crook of your elbow or you were shimmying it up on the shoulder. It had this sort of style about it that was, again, that felt actually very reminiscent of the time, which was like, it was luxury, but it felt casual with that slouch that it had. This bag got a lot of celebrity attention at the time, which once again led to its popularity, but one of the reasons why I don't think this bag has maybe stood the test of time so well is the weight of that lock. Oh my gosh, cancel your gym membership, because the weight of that bag was enough on a daily basis. That lock was very heavy. And listen, we already have to think about what's going in the bag. And now I'm worried that the bag already to begin with was 5 kilos, right? Slight exaggeration, possibly. I don't have one and I don't have a scale. But let's just throw that out there. So, yeah, I would probably say that it has sort of dated itself a little bit, I think. The lock is huge and that sort of feels slightly Y2K. The contrasting stitching, the heavy slouch of the bag, though we are going into slouch. Listen, Rachel Sennett, the actress, was seen last week carrying this bag out. So whilst I may think that it still feels very of its time, this goes to show that other people do not think that way. And if you're gonna like it, you're gonna like it. And listen, it might be having a comeback. You can sort of see inspiration a little bit in New Chloe from where they're trying to sort of do their Paddington. I think that they should do a newer version of it and see how it goes. I think it'll be interesting. Maybe a relaunch is imminent. Then we move into the Marc Jacobs Stam bag. This was another 2005. And I kind of think that this and the Chloe Paddington, they could be cousins. I don't know. Like, I see some familial traits there, okay? This bag was named after the popular model Jessica Stam. In my opinion, the silhouette of this bag is the bag emoji. Like, if you ask a child to draw a handbag, this is the style of bag they're drawing. So you had this sort of very stereotypical sort of bag style, quilted leather. It had a chain shoulder strap, a zip on the front of the bag. The handles were attached with the rings, and then you had this kiss lock closure that felt sort of a little bit vintagey, you know, it felt like an oldie worldy little, you know, a lady's handbag sort of touch. But obviously that with like the chain made it feel very modern to the time. There was a lot going on, which I feel worked with the excess of 2005. It was very that vibe, and I think that's why it maybe hasn't done well in recent years. And another reason that we might be able to determine that is they did a re-edition of this bag, which was pretty much exactly the same as the original, in 2003. Jessica Stam was in the campaign, as was Paris Hilton, and do you see many people talking about that bag online and how well the re-edition was? No, I don't think so. I think it's maybe a little bit quiet. Just an observation. There's a lot going on there, and it would have needed much more of a modern take and a bit more of a revamp than just bringing it out again. Because then also the question is, well, I can just get it on the resale market in the exact same colour from 2005 for much cheaper than the new, like, what are you doing differently? Then we have the Proenza Schouler PS1 bag. So this was 6 years into the brand's birth. So this bag came out in 2008 from the New York-based brand Proenza Schouler. And this is very different from all of the bags that I feel like we've talked about thus far, because this is a take on like a very traditional school satchel. But obviously people were wearing it in a very casual way. It was very preppy, and that was the vibe at the time. And so that in turn made it do really well. Seen once again across loads of celebrities, including New York's it girl to go beyond all of the other it girls, Chloe Sevigny. So it had this boost of initial success. Then it sort of like fell down a bit. And in 2017, they released the PS1 Plus, which was very similar to the original with some very slight adjustments, including making the bag a little bit more structured, changing the leather on it, and it had extra internal pockets. And then for its 10th anniversary, Proenza Schouler partnered with director and artist Harmony Korine on some limited edition pieces. How many were there? There were 400, and they were all numbered, right? And they were done under this collaboration. This bag is still available now, and whilst it's not over the top like the Marc Jacobs Stam bag, it's not full of logos like the Murakami pochette, it's quite a simple design. I don't think it's been able to sort of capture the same buzz as some of the other it bags that have managed to sort of like become permanent pieces and be sort of regarded as such as your baguette and your saddle and all of that. It's still a bag that people like, but it's not as sort of buzzy or talked about as often compared to some of the other it bags. I don't know why. Maybe it is because it's quite style specific, but then the saddle is very style specific. I don't know. Sometimes it's about the secret sauce and whether that secret sauce and the story can like continue through years and years and years. And maybe that bag just doesn't have it as much, in my opinion. This is the last it bag on this list, and it's the second it bag on this list, actually, done under Phoebe Philo's direction. This is the Celine luggage tote, and this bag came out in 2010, and this bag was everywhere. I was obsessed. They did sort of slight variations of this bag. It was a huge tote. If you look at the size of that bag now compared to the size of bags that we're like used to carrying now, it was huge. It had this sort of wave piping down the side and a little zip on the front that made it look like a mouth with its top handles. It had these like wings that came out at the side. It captured everybody. There were monochrome versions. There were like two-tone and tricolour, and there were exotic versions and all of that. There was even a version called the Phantom, which, once again, if you're a seasoned subscriber, you maybe know the story of that bag and the lengths that I went to get that bag. At the time, oh my gosh, it was like I needed to get that bag. I was obsessed with that damn bag, right? I wanted the grey one in particular. I had to go on a waiting list. And then when I was off the waiting, I got a phone call and they were like, hi, we have the bag, but we can only hold it for 2 hours. So I dropped everything I didn't go to any uni lessons that day and went to London, picked up the bag and came back. It was that level of like coveted and popular, and just like, it just oozed that it bagginess out of its little leather veins. Personally, I downsized in my bag styles, but the nano luggage followed and was also extremely popular. It's the only style of that bag that is still available on the Celine website. It's not a bag that they produce as part of collections. The nano luggage is still there in a black, like a taupe, and a dusty blue. But I've seen a lot of like the original luggage and phantoms kicking around at outlets, and this is like how many years later? So clearly it's something that maybe in terms of trend people have left behind, but I do think that personally I will always have, like, going through the pictures for this video, I was just like, oh my gosh, the sodding phantom bag, like maybe I need to bring that back because it's currently in the UK. Maybe I need to ask my mum to bring that back next time. There is something about that bag that just captures you, and I get it, I really do. Maybe I just need to build up the strength in my arm so I can do it again. It's almost like if you're going to do this bag, then do it in that way with the big tote, not the nano luggage version. Do the phantom, do the two-tone, do the tricolour, something like that, because it's got a little bit more, of the secret sauce in those versions. I don't know what to tell you. Those are my thoughts on the it bags between 1997 and 2010, and I'm sure I've completely forgotten about a couple of them. Cough, the Fendi spy bag, cough. But let me know if you want me to do another version of this video going through the more recent it bags that we've seen, because my gosh, have we had some. I'm going to leave a link to, and let me know which of these was your favourite. I'm going to leave a link to another video of here in case you haven't already seen it. Have an amazing morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. And in the words of my father,
if you've enjoyed it, tell your friends. If you haven't, keep your mouth shut.
I will see you in my next video. Mwah. Bye, guys.